The phone wouldn't stop ringing. It was 8:59 a.m. The store wasn't even open yet, and still, the shrill sound echoed through the empty aisles. When Daniel picked up, he didn't even have time to greet. "You need to listen to me very carefully," a sharp voice snapped. "This will be my last complaint." The name on the caller ID made his stomach twist. Karen Whitley. The same woman who had called 17 times last month, filed 5 written grievances, and demanded 3 separate meetings with corporate. He had no patience left. But something in her voice was different this time. It wasn't just angry, it was urgent. "Mrs. Whitley," Daniel said cautiously, "we open in—" "This isn't about store hours," she cut in. "It's about someone's life." He froze. Karen Whitley was the queen of petty grievances. The kind of person who would threaten legal action over a dented soup can. But now her tone was low, trembling. "What do you mean, someone's life?" he asked. There was a pause, then the sound of her taking a shaky breath. "There's a man in your store. He's dangerous, and he's not who you think he is." Daniel looked around. The only people inside were the morning staff. Carlos stocking milk, Mia counting cash drawers. No customers yet. "Mrs. Whitley, there's no one here." "Check the cameras now." Against his better judgment, he switched on the monitor in the back office. And that's when his pulse spiked. In camera 3, near the storage room, was a man Daniel didn't recognize. Tall, wearing a baseball cap pulled low. He wasn't supposed to be there. Daniel's voice tightened. "How do you know about him?" Another long silence. Then Karen said something he never expected. "Because I followed him. And if you don't listen to me, you'll regret it." Before Daniel could ask more, the line went dead. He stared at the monitor. The man in the cap was moving deeper into the storage area, toward the locked office where today's cash drop sat. The store was still closed. The front doors were locked. So how had he gotten inside? Daniel felt the first prick of dread. For the first time since he'd started working here, he wished Karen Whitley was standing right in front of him. Because maybe, just maybe, she was telling the truth. Daniel's first instinct was to grab the phone and call 911, but he hesitated. What if he was wrong? What if this intruder was just a new repair guy or an early delivery he didn't know about? Still, the way the man moved made his stomach churn. It wasn't casual. It was searching. Daniel stepped out from the office, the monitor's image still burned in his mind. The store was eerily quiet, the kind of silence you could feel in your bones. "Mia," he called to the cashier, keeping his voice calm. "Did anyone come in through the front?" She shook her head. "No. Doors are locked. Why?" "Just stay here," he said, forcing a smile. "I'm going to check something." As he walked toward the storage area, his heart was pounding so hard he could hear it in his ears. He rounded the corner and stopped. The man in the cap was crouched by the staff-only door. His gloved hands worked quickly at the lock, a small tool glinting in the fluorescent light. "Excuse me," Daniel said, his voice louder than he intended. The man's head jerked up. His eyes were hidden by the shadow of the cap, but Daniel felt the weight of his stare. "No words, no explanation." Then without warning, the man bolted, not toward the exit, but deeper into the maze of back rooms. Daniel chased him, weaving past pallets of bottled water and towers of cereal boxes. The storage area smelled of cardboard and dust. But under it all, he caught another scent. Metallic. Sharp, almost like blood. They rounded a corner and suddenly the man vanished. Gone. Daniel spun in place, his breath ragged. He was alone. Or at least, he thought he was. Then his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered without thinking. "You saw him, didn't you?" Karen's voice came through, quiet but steady. Daniel swallowed. "Yes, who is he?" "Someone who doesn't belong there. Someone who's looking for me." That made no sense. "Why would he be—" "Daniel," she interrupted, "you need to listen. This isn't about your store. It's about something I did. And if he finds what I left there, it's over." The line crackled, then went silent again. Daniel stood there in the half-dark storage room, the hum of the coolers filling the air. Somewhere in the shadows, he thought he heard a faint creak, like someone shifting their weight on the floorboards. The man was still here. And now Daniel wasn't sure who was more dangerous, the stranger in the cap, or Karen Whitley herself. Daniel didn't move. The faint creak came again, this time closer. He turned slowly, scanning the shadows. Between the tall shelves, nothing, just the flicker of a dying light bulb overhead. He backed toward the door, keeping his eyes wide open. The only sound now was the soft, steady hum of the refrigeration units, almost enough to convince him he'd imagined the noise. Almost. Once back in the office, he locked the door and pulled up the security feed again. The man in the cap was gone from the storage area. But now camera 6 showed the employee break room door swinging shut. Daniel dialed the number Karen had called from earlier. It rang once, twice, then she picked up. "Did you find it yet?" she asked without greeting. "Find what, Karen?" Daniel's voice was sharp now. "What's going on? Who is this guy?" "Not on the phone." she whispered. Meet me at the west parking lot, 15 minutes. Bring the small black cash. Deposit bag from the top right cabinet in the storage room. Daniel blinked. The deposit bag. That's company property. And it's locked. Exactly, she cut in. He's looking for it. I'm telling you, if he gets it before we do, we're both done. Her voice cracked at the end, and for a second, Daniel thought he heard genuine fear in her tone. Still, he hesitated. This was insane. Karen Whitley was known for exaggerating everything. The idea that she had planted something in the store's deposit bag was absurd. But the image of that stranger's gloved hands at the lock burned in his mind. Against his better judgment, he left the office, glancing both ways before heading to the storage room. The cabinet she mentioned was dusty, barely touched. When he opened it, the deposit bag was there. He grabbed it. The second his fingers closed around the handle, he heard movement, fast, deliberate footsteps coming from behind him. He spun around. The man in the cap was standing in the doorway. Neither of them spoke. The man's gaze locked on the bag. Then he took a slow step forward. Daniel's grip tightened. You need to leave. The man tilted his head slightly, then smiled. It wasn't friendly. You have something that doesn't belong to you. Daniel's heart pounded in his throat. And you're trespassing. The man's smile faded. You don't understand. If you give that to her, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. For a moment, Daniel forgot to breathe. Because in the man's eyes, he didn't see greed. He saw something worse. Desperation. Daniel stood frozen, the deposit bag heavy in his hand. The man in the cap took another step forward, his boots making a dull thud on the concrete floor. She didn't tell you, did she? The man said, his voice low. Daniel swallowed hard. Tell me what? What's inside that bag? It's not money, it's evidence. And if you hand it to her, you're an accessory. The word evidence made Daniel's pulse spike. Evidence of what? The man glanced toward the ceiling camera, then back to him. Not here. Too many eyes. Before Daniel could respond, his phone buzzed. Karen again. He answered, his voice sharp. Talk. Don't listen to him, she said immediately, her tone almost panicked. He's dangerous. He works for the people who want me dead. Daniel's gaze flicked between the stranger and the office door behind him. The man didn't move. He just stared, waiting. Karen, Daniel said. He says this bag has evidence in it. What's really inside? Proof, she said after a pause. Proof that a man named Victor Haynes stole millions from the city's infrastructure fund. Proof that will put him in prison. The man's jaw tightened. Ask her how she got it. Daniel repeated the question into the phone. Silence. Then Karen said quietly, I was his assistant. Until I realized what he was doing. I took something I shouldn't have. And now, I can't go to the police until I'm safe. Daniel's chest tightened. None of this made sense. Why hide it in this store? Why drag him into it? The man stepped closer. She's lying. She didn't steal it for justice. She stole it to sell to Haynes's competitors. She's been playing both sides. Daniel felt sweat prick the back of his neck. Two people. Two stories. Both claiming the other was dangerous. Why should I trust you? He asked the man. Because if you give her that bag, the man said, you'll never see her again. And when they find you, they won't believe you didn't know what was inside. Karen's voice came through the phone, sharper now. Daniel, if you walk out of that store without the bag, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. For a long moment, Daniel didn't move. The bag's zipper felt like a live wire under his fingers. If he gave it to Karen, he might be helping a criminal. If he gave it to the man, he might be betraying someone telling the truth. The break room clock ticked in the background. He had to choose. And whatever he chose, someone was going to lose. Daniel's hand tightened on the deposit bag until his knuckles turned white. The man in the cap was watching him like a hawk. Karen's voice was still in his ear, each word coming faster, more desperate. Daniel, listen to me. That man will kill me if you let him have it. She's using you, the man countered. Everything she's ever told you has been a lie. Daniel's breath came shallow. This wasn't about store policy or angry customers anymore. This was survival. And then, somewhere deep in his gut, a decision clicked into place. He zipped the bag shut, looked the man square in the eye, and said, if either of you want it, you're going to have to follow me to the police station. The man's face darkened. Karen's voice on the phone went razor sharp. Daniel, don't be stupid. But he was already moving. Daniel pushed past the man, taking the narrow hallway toward the front. The man's footsteps followed, fast and heavy. As Daniel burst into the main store, Mia looked up in confusion. Call the cops! He shouted. The man in the cap lunged just as Daniel reached the sliding front doors. They burst open into the bright glare of morning. Daniel sprinted across the parking lot, the bag thudding against his leg. A horn blared. Tires screeched. A black SUV swerved into the lot and stopped inches from him. The passenger door flew open, and there was Karen. Her hair was wild, her eyes sharp. Get in. For a split second, Daniel almost did. Almost. But something in her expression, not fear, but hunger, made his stomach twist. Behind him, the man in the cap was closing in. Daniel took 3 steps back, spun toward the SUV, and threw the deposit bag straight into the hands of a police officer stepping out of a cruiser that had just pulled in. From the opposite side of the lot, Karen's face drained of color. The man in the cap stopped cold. The officer opened the bag, glanced inside, then looked up at both of them. You two have a lot to explain. Karen's jaw trembled. Daniel, you have no idea what you've done. Daniel met her gaze, his voice steady. No, I know exactly what I've done. I've just filed my last complaint. The officer separated them, leading Karen and the man toward different squad cars. For the first time all morning, the store behind him felt quiet, and Daniel realized he might never know the whole truth. But one thing was certain. Neither of them would be making any more complaints here. And if they did, it wouldn't be to him.